Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in the live chat. I appreciate it. Today we're going to be doing a range of different things, maybe at a slightly slower pace because it's been quite full on and heavy recently, both talking, reading through stuff. We've not had as much visual maybe, but I guess we can make up for that today with the usage of maps. Look at a few key bullet points. That can be to do with Don H location, Don Hately. I know we briefly talked about it, but keep that discussion going instead of it fading away, right? So people can share their thoughts, opinions, reactions, ideas, concepts, theories, and knowledge in the chat right-hand side of the screen, the chat box, okay? We can also be taking a look at Brenner with the trash bags, the spring cleaning, because the likes of Ty Corbyn has his own thoughts and ideas that the LE did watch Brenner when doing it, and it was all part of a plan. So possibilities that they were able to track down the bags, but a fair few other people don't think that way. So we can go on discussions there and also look at it visually on the map to try and understand where it could have possibly gone, because we've only really done it once or twice when we're looking directly at Wendover, right? And also the other key bullet point, which can be a discussion later on, is Brenner and Don and Brenner, always popping up with one another. A certain event, a certain day, helping each other out, both at the same place, same time, that type of stuff. It's kind of interesting. So yeah, and as well, what we're finally going to do today, and this is based off my opinion, okay, we finally got to that point, my opinion of Brenner revealing his possible motives, but a backstory behind it and some key words, some key sentences, right? I'm not going to share it straight away, it'll be later on in this video, so make sure to stick around. But in a visual sense, it's basically I've got Brenner on screen as like a photo, and then it's in a certain specific order of key words which summarize him or apply to him and maybe explain to why what happened, okay? Just take that in mind. We are going to go in that later. I'm sure if the Shack lady is present, she's going to jump on in, put her glasses on and get a stethoscope and say, well, actually, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, okay, but in this video, I'm going to be sharing my opinion with Brenner, right? Maybe some of you will agree, and if not, I'm sure you can give your own thoughts as well, whether it be in the chat or the comment section, which is down below. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to check out my last video I did on the Dylan Rounds case, quite an important one. I'll provide a link down below in the pinned comment section. And also, if you are returning back, or if the odd reject pops in, or, you've kind of got lost, make sure to check my previous videos out in general, as there's been some quite important coverage on the Dylan Rounds case, okay? What I have noticed was the Law and Crime Network channel have done another video recently, a day ago. Maybe some of you already know. They've done two lots, I believe. One day ago, the other the day before or 2 days before that. And I watched that previous one where it was showing Justin and Candice Cooley talking, being interviewed separately in separate locations. You remember that one? We're hearing about Justin revealing the backstory of how he was introduced to Brenner and Brenner threatening Justin, I'm going to shoot you, that one. Well, there was another video yesterday, and when taking a look at that, it wasn't that, wow, it wasn't. It was more just, talking over what's previously happened, all the stuff we've already heard of, okay? I did watch the video myself. They did bring in some expert, and when they asked the expert, what do you think? He was like, and it's like, well, yeah, it's to be expected from what they would say. Just standard stuff, right? It wasn't groundbreaking, it's what we've already heard, okay? I was thinking of doing an analysis of it, some kind of summary, but it was a waste of time, right? It wasn't necessary. You can still check it out if you want. If you want it summarized, I guess, you can watch it. Though it did miss out the odd little detail, such as when they were talking about Brenner and his past criminal history. I don't think they included anything about Brenner being sentenced for 33 months. It didn't mention anything about 1983, where Brenner was threatening physical towards his then wife at the time. That wasn't mentioned, so that's a little bit disappointing. They did talk about the Maryland incident in the 1980s, but I don't think they called it the Maryland incident or work dispute. It was a little bit vague, a little bit too summarized, and obviously these are by more professional people with, I guess, higher standards, a bigger audience, a more established channel, and yet they did miss out on some key details, which is to be expected, because look, is this going to be a prediction? Not really. This is reality, okay? I'm going to give you reality right now, and we're just going to suddenly jump on in. It's like, wow, fuck me, but please, not literally. So basically, when it comes to this case, and it can apply to any other case, it can apply to Kenny Veach. Someone like me, because I've got a small-ish channel, if I cover the case, a few people will hear about it and notice, right? But then if a big channel came on in and covered the same thing, they would get more of the focus. More of the people would suddenly know about the case because of that bigger channel. Just how it works, right? So if you think about it, if I covered a video which found something very important in the case, or something very mysterious, a key vital talking point, and it was uploaded, 300 to 500 people may see it. And then that's it for 10 years. 10 years later, another channel, a big one, comes on in, covers the same exact thing, but 10 years later, 500,000 views. Mass awareness. And then everyone's like, oh, why did we not see this earlier on? Oh, why did we not talk about this way back then? Oh, it's been so late now. And it's like, you fucking twats. If you actually bothered looking at the beginning, you would have noticed. Okay? You can partially blame YouTube for the lack of awareness spread, because it can, involve favoritism at times, maybe. It could get a little bit, picky and choosy of who they prefer and who they don't, right? Just one of those things. So I think it comes to an extent of human behavior as well. Who can be bothered to type this in to get that exact video? Who can be bothered looking? Maybe not many. You know what I'm saying? Because you look at percentages of recommended videos to searched videos. There can be an imbalance at times. And at that point, this is where we transition on into the next point, right? Humans, not all, but a fair few here and there, across all different communities of cases, will always complain about the views and who it reaches out to. Viewers will complain about people that talk about views because they see it as some kind of narcissism, manipulation, selfishness, not caring about the case. That's where the big misunderstanding is, right? The most important thing is, when it comes to a case, whether it be already somewhat known or not known at all, there needs to be a level of awareness and frequency of coverage of that case, of that person, right? So technically, you need as many people to hear about it, right? But for many people to hear about it, you need a fair few views on a video, so then people are informed about it. You see where it's going. And yet, obviously, the humans that do complain and call out about this and that, they don't seem to understand that, but it's an important part, an important concept, because if it didn't matter, then no one really hears about it, and then it's dead, flat. Oh well, never mind. It does fucking matter, right? As mainly with the case, it ties in. It's intertwined with one another, okay? And this is where we move on to the next key bold point, right? How did people come across the Dylan Rounds case? And this could be more so towards creators, but maybe it could apply to viewers as well, people out there. You know the question of, do you want Dylan Rounds found? Sounds like a stupid question, right? Of course, everyone's going to say yes. But this is where you put in the but. Well, if everyone wants Dylan Rounds found, then why are some humans causing disruption and misdirection? Why are other humans simply causing interference internally or externally when it comes to distribution of information or trying to process it? Like if you're trying to take it in yourself and then people are just causing noise, causing gobbiness, maybe bringing drama in, external drama into a case, making drama within a case, and maybe it drags out, pulls out of the case, but most of the time it remains inside. Okay, you get what I'm saying? There's a lot of unnecessary situations with people, and obviously the reason why there are problems is because of people. People create these different problems, just like the disappearance and murder of Dylan. That's a problem, and it was caused by Brenner, who is a human, which I know some people think, well, that's hard to believe. So as with the external stuff where there's confusion and there's misdirection, maybe physically, on site, moving stuff, adding things to the environment, you never know. And then all the other false accusations, interrogations, going full on in an impetuous manner, complaining about this, whining about this, whining about that, saying that's wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong, that shouldn't be done, you're doing that wrong, you shouldn't be doing this because you're that far away, oh, maps, they're never going to help. And it's like, shut the fuck up, calm down. Do you want Dylan Rounds found? Yes. Do your thing. Does it help? Maybe, maybe not. Try, okay? Does that other person do the same thing? Yes. Is it what you do? No. Do you agree why it works? No. Well, does it really matter? Well, as long as it doesn't cause any trouble to the case, then it shouldn't. You keep doing your thing, that other person does theirs. That's it. Simple as. Done, right? Obviously, that's not the case here, because some humans are going round and round, revolving door theory, okay? Just like when I've come across humans in the past, humans have such an obsession with getting the final word in before I do, but the palms get sweaty, they get really excited. Yeah, please, I'm gonna really wet boy. Yeah, I wanna get the final word in because I'm so desperate. I'm such a desperate little bitch. Why? Why? Obsessions. Keyword, obsessions. We've seen obsessions many times in this case and the way people react and respond within it. Obsessions with trying to get the truth out or answers out of people doesn't always work, pushes people away. We've already seen that, right? When someone tried interrogating Weezer, did Weezer respond and answer the questions or the forceful demands? Not at all. Well done. That was a complete failure, you fucking plum, right? And then in one's own time, casually, naturally, Weezer shared her point. Simple as. Got a witness, like, statement from her. See, very smooth. Sure, if it's private, then it can work there as well, but it's happened more on a public level this time, which just goes to show that some humans are more comfortable than others on maybe certain platforms or certain channels, which is all good, okay? Speaking of behaviour last night, I think fairly good behaviour. Joy Perry. Really, Joy Perry, I'm just being honest, Joy Perry is the only long-time-ish viewer on the Dylan Rounds case on my channel, an internal viewer that may cause friction with many different people, though it's not that bad. It's just mainly disagreements. So Joy Perry will say this or that, saying like how this person's involved or that person. Others are like, well, prove it, or, you know, can you show it? And then Joy's like, oh, well, no, or oh, you know, we'll do it this way, we'll do it that way. And it doesn't really come to a head. It's just like in circles upon circles. But it's not that nasty, okay? You know, if people want to like be really sensitive or something, there's really no bad word in, no threats, nothing like really that bad going on, so it's not really an issue. You get what I'm saying? Just disagreement. So And that will always happen at the end of the day. One thing I've noticed, because I do observe other chats, or at least in the past I did on other live streams, and when you get potato pickers or when you get impetuous whiners in their own natural habitat, you look at the chat and they all seem to be in some kind of flow or agreement with one another. It seems somewhat natural, right? If you exclude those external attacks of other forces and unknown people coming on in, most of the time it looks somewhat stable. Just like how mine does, my chat, these live video premieres, right? But when looking at these external people's chats with their own little groups of people, their own little posses, their own little bitch boys, their own little wanglers, twangers, I don't know what you call them. And then all that calmness remains, though suddenly my chat goes a little bit into chaos. Oh, what a shame. Why is that? Well, you're getting external people coming on in, and we have said this before, but isn't it typical how it only goes and works one way? Everyone make notes. Everyone make notes right now. For most part of it, all these external people that come on here that may cause indirectionally, maybe not on purpose, cause tension and friction and remain, and it goes into chaos. Yeah, it doesn't when they stay in their own corner. And yet you flip it the other way around. The people that watch my videos, either they just stay here or they might move on to other channels. And yet their channels, you know, whoever my viewers have gone on to, there don't seem to be any meltdown there. One-sided, isn't it? Possibly because some of the people that watch my videos are arguably a little bit more stable, probably arguably a little bit more cleaner, not as many criminal records, mugshots, probably less impetuous, you know. Now, obviously you always get hybrid viewers that do go from place to place. I always am aware of that and acknowledge it. But in terms of some of the longer time viewers on my channel, right, and even the ones that were way back from, you know, in the earlier days with the Kenny Veach stuff, they've never really caused much trouble, right? I'm not including Mama Down Under. I don't know who that person is. I've never seen them before, so shoot. But for the most part of it, people that have remained have been reasonable, right? And when they may have gone on to other channels, they've either not really participated in the chat because I would have seen them, or if they have done, it's not really led to any trouble. Like, I've seen it in the past where Christy B was on some other channel. She was on No Thanks at one point, then on another. I saw her in the live chat. I've seen Indiana on maybe Jim Terry's channel once or twice in the past, and then some others in between. I've seen Weedleby, I guess, on others. I've seen, who else? You know, I can't think on the spot. But basically, those people, they've not suddenly infected another chat. You know what I'm saying? So technically, my viewers, or kind of my viewers, have not injected venom into other people's chats out there, but other people out there, some of them have come in here and injected venom and then gone back to their place, and it's been all stable and a calm party. How dare you do that? Disappointing. Very disappointed in you. Oh, Raf is very disappointed in you. That's not good, is it? Now, kind of off subject, but this whip list does continue, okay? There are some unaccounted humans out there. Looks like we're in deep waters. Isn't that right, Indiana? Definitely on a slippery slide right now. Oh well, it will be a pending whip, but it will come eventually. Not you, Indiana, but you'll get it. So yeah, put that aside. I guess one thing to acknowledge and highlight, and let me also highlight, this is yet another moment of balance, okay? Wow, exactly. So when it comes to Lance Kelly, right, aside from the weather, which has been an obstacle, Still to this day, Lance Kelly has uploaded videos in an attempt to search for Dylan Rounds. So he's been somewhat consistent, somewhat frequent. Obviously, people agree with him and others don't, but he's continued trying, which you can acknowledge. And like, titles of the videos, it seems like it's more focused on Dylan at this point in time. I know there was a phase where it was incorporating Susan Powell and maybe Tommy Novak and some others, but I guess the focus is back on Dylan at this moment in time. I just want to highlight one point in defense of Lance Kelly. Okay, humans, don't have too much of a meltdown. This is how we do it. This is the balance being put in, right? I've questioned Lance Kelly here and there. People have got their pants in a twist. Others have got their kangaroos upside down, okay? And some koalas are falling off the trees. I hope they don't bump their head, but if they do, I'm sure Dr. Raf can put a cold compression upon their head as long as they don't get brain freeze. Oh my God, I don't give a fuck about fucking Australia, mate, you little cunt. But let's just put that aside, right? Let's calm down, slow it down a little bit. I said slow-paced video for once. I know humans in the past were whinging and whining about that. Why is your voice too slow? Why is this too slow? Because I'm thinking before I speak, unlike other humans do, right? With Lance Kelly, I've questioned him in the past, such as, is it really practical searching in very tight entrances? You know, where there's tight holes. You're going to go into one. Is it practical? Is Dylan really going to be there? Would Brenner have really fit through that hole? No, he wouldn't have got through. So there's been questions about that. There's been questions about maybe certain videos or how Candice Cooley herself has questioned and criticised Lance, etc., right? It's been done across all boards. That's what I've done in this case. But in defence of Lance Kelly, when it comes to at least titles of videos, considering external people like hounding me about clickbait videos, when it comes to Lance Kelly, people don't always seem to aim it towards him, and yet you could put an argument across and say he does it as well. But I'm not going to be that type of person. What I'm going to highlight is the fact that when it comes to these titles of videos, they do stand out, and obviously it could be for a particular reason, but more so it's because it's relevant to what was found in that video. It's not saying that it's Dylan's bone found, but it's that a bone has been found, right? Maybe over time it could be considered milking it, or it becomes less practical. Oh, a bone found, oh, here we go again. I know viewers have said that. Here we go again, most likely. Another animal bone, that's all it's gonna be. But this is the thing. You dismiss it at some point and you completely forget, and then it's like you might eventually come across something that is actually genuine and important, and you've just brushed it over because of all the other past stuff, and now you've missed out, right? Just like with Kenny Veach and the M Cave. You come across an M Cave, or you come across some kind of mine shaft, trying to find the key to the mystery, people write it off. Oh, it's just a natural cave. Oh, it's just a normal M-shaped cave. It's not the real one. Just give up. And it's like, well, if you just completely disregard it, then maybe the next time you may have found it, but that level of effort, focus wasn't there, so you've missed that chance, right? That's the way I see it. You know, sometimes you're trying to look for something and you may stumble upon something else, right? In the Dylan Rounds case, you may be looking for clues of Dylan and you just happen to accidentally stumble across Dylan. In Candice Cooley's response, that's not possible or very likely, considering how long the case has gone on for and all the searches and, you know, the public people that have come on in and volunteers that they haven't found Dylan, so you're not just going to accidentally come across Dylan. I can agree with that to an extent. If Dylan's in the ground, buried, I've not really seen Lance Kelly start digging up the land, which, you know, is a positive. It just shows he's not really causing too much disturbance to an area. But, you know, it also shows that if you're not digging, then you're probably not going to find Dylan. So that's the other counter argument to why keep going around in circles if you're not really going to find him, because he's literally in the ground. So the only next step would be to start looking in the ground. But of course, you can't quite really do that. So I guess the backup idea could be still look for clues, possibly. Now, We'll get into that defence line in defence, or you want to say support, of Lance Kelly very shortly, but I just want to highlight another point. What is the point pointing out and observing like deep track marks? Like, I don't know if it's always like this, but if you're in the area right now, 9 months on after Dylan's disappearance, what's done is done. Dylan's been disposed of once or twice, whichever. The odd person may have helped, like Don Haley, but that was back then. So likely not much has happened since, aside from the fact that there's been activity on and off with people going out there trying to search and look for Dylan, right? So why get really deep and intrigued and see it as a mysterious sign when you start seeing track marks? It's like, yeah, the track marks, and what, you think the track marks leading to a location where Dylan's been secretly been moved since, and then there's another track mark over there where items have been buried, removed. It's not like a constant process going on here. You know what I'm saying? It's person been disposed, concealed somewhere, and maybe removed in between, and then that's it. With Don moving on off elsewhere into a different state, Lucin is at an all-time quiet low, right? Quieter than ever, less people than ever, really not much else is going on. The only time maybe where you could acknowledge and highlight where there's levels of activity, such as the track marks, and making a genuine note of them, is when you've just discovered a new place of interest, you've uploaded it online, and then shortly afterwards there are track marks leading up to the place. You could be under the idea of, oh, did someone watch one of my videos? Was it a viewer who was interested and wanted to take a look themselves? Or was it someone that basically got intel and researched my video and thought about the need to go there to take something away or to cover it up, right? I can understand it to an extent, because when it comes to the Kenny Veach case, right, yes, you're looking for a missing person. That's what it is, but you're also looking for the mystery of a cave, which could be associated with military. There could be some kind of access denial system and equipment that causes vibrations to put you off when you're out there. Some people have supposedly experienced it. You've got the rogue explorers going out there. Some document it, others don't, and that creates an inner mystery of who did what. Why did the environment change? Why are the track marks here? Or why are the footprints there? Why has that rock been moved since? Why has that skull been placed really high up upon a rock when an animal wouldn't be responsible for doing it? Is it a warning? Is it a threat? Is it someone messing about? Is someone trying to sabotage it for other people? Are some people adding items there to make it more of a mystery than it actually is? Are some people actually taking away items to make it even more spooky? Are people investigating the likes of the Covered M cave but not actually publicly documenting it because they could get in trouble? But at the same time, whilst keeping quiet, it just creates more of a mystery and intrigue and confusion to who caused it and why. There's a lot that goes on, right? With the Dylan Rounds case, to an extent, it's no different, so I can understand. But because, from the looks of it, what's done is done, there's no real need to be doing anything else in between if there's a suspect out there. Constantly relocating Dylan is pointless, right? Once should be more than enough. Second time to nail the coffin in, not quite literally. But unless the only other thing would be if you got too close to an actual location where Dylan was and then it was led with resistance, direct or indirect, and then you went back there later and realised, oh shit, that looks a bit different all of a sudden. I wonder why. You know, like if you suddenly went to an area afterwards and then it was fenced off and it's like, oh, why have they done that? Now, that's not really happened in the Dylan Rounds case to that level. As for the changes to Lucin Pond, how that's changed, obviously, visually, as we've seen, as Ty Corbin has documented himself on his channel. That was for a reason, a purpose, and it was explained and backed up by Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, news reports, as well as what we've heard of in between. But it was, I guess, the police presence early and their resources, digging it up, draining the pond, just making sure there wasn't anything else there. Okay, I guess document it, makes sense. But if humans do ever start creating a mystery of track marks now, it's like, yeah, but it's not really as much of a mystery because it's most likely just simply people searching, right? No harm in documenting it, but I guess it's just worth making it clear why it actually is. And in terms of making it clear why it actually is, that links to the titles of Lance Kelly's videos, right? He could be searching here, he could be searching in a cave, or he could be searching in the pond and he's found bone, a bone fragment, a bone piece, full skeletal remains. That's never come to that point. It's just been loose bones here and there. And with it being loose bones, after seeing all those video titles, you think, oh wow, you know, how many bones are out there? And it's, well, wildlife, right? Kenny Beach case, Mojave Desert, Nevada, USA, several bones all over the place. Little bighorn sheep remains, the skulls, those horns, and then the horns that pop off the bone of the horns. Some arranged in a crisscross X formation, which is a bit odd. Other bone fragments found half stuck in a bush or on a twig or something. Some skulls placed on a rock. You know, there's a lot of skulls out there and skeletal stuff and bones, and that's just because of the wildlife, the environment, okay? Desert terrain as well. So it can apply to the Dylan Brown's case as well and Lucin, because that's desert-like terrain and environment. And with the wildlife, although I don't know the quantity of wildlife out there, there is stuff out there, right? And some will die, some may be killed naturally, or maybe by other animals, and then they just decompose, and then the bones are left. And as well, with it being out in the wild and desert and all the ranges of animals, bones will be scattered about. Can apply both to animal bones and human bones. Though at this moment in time, no human bones have been found, at least from what I know of, at least, right? So when you do start seeing these video titles, such as by Lance Kelly, of bone found, I look at it and think, okay, it is what it is, literally, but it's probably not to do with Dylan or a human in general. That's how I react, but I can imagine other humans won't. Some will be constantly intrigued, thinking, oh, this is the one. Oh, it wasn't. Well, the next one will be the one. Oh, no, it isn't. Well, the next one will be the one. And you're just constantly going round and round. Having some form of hope isn't a bad thing, because it might eventually come true, and you might finally find something of interest, right? You can at least acknowledge that. But the people that come on in and say, oh, these titles are misleading, they're not misleading, though. If Lance Kelly has said, Dylan Round's search, suspicious bone found, or simply bone found, Dylan Round search, it is what it is. Two different sentences. It's not saying Dylan Round's bone has been found, a bone of Dylan has been found. It's not saying that. It's saying Dylan Round's search, full stop, not literally, a bone found, or a bag of bones found. Two separate things, right? You're on a search and you indirectly find a bone or bones. And the reason why you put it in the title of your video, because that might be the only interesting thing out of the video, out of the footage, right? It might create a talking point. And like, you try and do a summary, you know, of your videos. What's within the video? How can you summarize it to the best of your ability? Well, I've been on a search. I'm looking for a said named individual, and I've also found a particular item. Well, let's construct the title of the video. Dylan Rounds search, or the search for Dylan Rounds, a bone has been found. It's that simple, right? So I can understand Lance Kelly, the way he titles most of his videos, let's just say. So I acknowledge that. Does anyone else agree? Right? The usage of question marks can be very important. It can separate misinformation and BS and clickbait to simply questioning something and it being genuine. That question mark is put there for a reason at times, just being a simple sentence or the title of the video. And also one thing to acknowledge as well, sometimes when you are a creator uploading a video, whether you're creating a poll in a chat or in the community section, or as I said, title of a video, you're limited to characters. The live chat, you're limited to 200 characters when typing. The polls, I think you're limited to maybe about 10 to 20 characters per vote. That's difficult, right? You summarize it too much, it's too vague and they don't know what it means. If you try and drag it out long, you might not be able to fill out the sentence, so it's an unfinished sentence and then they don't understand it. So you can have a lose-lose situation at times. And as said, when it comes to the titles of videos, such as the Dylan Rounds case, it's got to be somewhat unique from the previous videos so that the awareness is spread and that humans don't get mixed up and think it's the same exact thing when it's actually not. You know what I'm saying? And as well, you want it to stand out so awareness can be spread of an important talking point or finding. And I think in a way that's probably what Lance Kelly takes into mind. And to, I guess, reinforce that up, step it up a little bit, we'll just briefly look at Lance Kelly's upcoming video. We'll just head on over to YouTube now and I'll tell you about it. Right, here we are on screen. You can clearly see the video. This is a video premiere. So just to put it up there, if you want to check out Lance Kelly's upcoming video, make sure to do so. I believe it's coming out the 23rd, so tomorrow. Take in mind the time difference as well of when it's actually released, but at least it comes out tomorrow for me. So it'll be interesting to see what it's all about, if it is. It is linked with Dylan Rounds, as you'll see shortly. And the thumbnail is interesting. Some kind of abandoned building, I assume within Lucin. And we just go up on here. He's even got a channel trailer or some trailer for his live premiere, which is interesting. I've never seen a trailer before for a live video premiere. Don't know how you exactly do that. Interesting. But I'm not going to play the trailer because, you know, copyright issues and all that. Don't really need to. You can check it out yourself if you're interested. But from what was supposedly said, it was Dylan's road. So I guess the dirt road that goes down to Dylan's farm, as we saw in yesterday's video when we were looking at Don Haley's routes to Dylan's farm. Right, you remember? It's got a little picture, bottom right corner of the screen, of Google Earth from the looks of it. Just highlight one thing. Isn't it kind of interesting how all these humans, left, right and centre, are focusing on using Google Earth now? When it came to the Dylan Rounds case, to an extent, I was using Google Earth myself. Maybe people catched on, I don't know. But it can be helpful. You've got both on-ground footage and an aerial view shot, both on screen, so that's good what Lance has done. You see that abandoned building in the distance over there on the side of the road. And it's titled, "What Did I Find? Viewer Discretion Advised." There we go. This could explain it. While searching for Dylan Rounds in Lucin, Utah, I came across items in an abandoned building. I had to immediately report to law enforcement. Some viewers may find the images in the video disturbing. Viewer discretion advised. When you read something like that out, and let's say you don't know who Earthworm Infotainment is, but you have been looking at the Dylan Rounds case, you see a video like this, you're going to lock on and you're going to think, oh shit, wow, what the hell's going on here, right? But maybe other people who are desensitized over time due to misinformation, confusion and misunderstanding, they may see this video and think, it's probably nothing at the end of the day. I'll give you my opinion, my actual opinion on this. It does look interesting, and it will be interesting to see what's within, especially with it saying disturbing. Sometimes, though, I know people do overuse the word disturbing when it comes to urban exploration, exploring abandoned buildings. There's been people that have faked stuff, such as blood found in an abandoned building or a body found wrapped up in bed sheets with blood on it. That's been fake. Then there's been maybe some more genuine ones of an abandoned hospital with blood stains within, and it is where it is. And they've used the word disturbing to describe the theme of the video. So sometimes it's genuine when it's meant, and other times not. You just got to be a little bit cautious. I feel that with whatever's been found in here, which will be eventually revealed, right? I guess Lance genuinely feels it's disturbing, right? And odd, out of the ordinary. The only thing I'll highlight is this abandoned building within Lucin and near to Dylan's farm, or at least near to the road going down to Dylan's farm. After all this time, wouldn't the family, the LE, resources volunteers, wouldn't they have gone into this abandoned building by now and ticked it off the list? You know what I'm saying? Or has this never been found before? It's never been searched because there was no need to. And because Lance has just suddenly come across it, he's found whatever. The fact that it says he had to immediately report to the law enforcement, it must be very serious, right? Maybe. I guess the positive, the one thing you can at least acknowledge and highlight is that at least he's reported it to the LE. That's something. I think the misunderstanding to an extent when it comes to Lance Kelly in the eyes of maybe Candice Cooley is not so much actually trying to search for Dylan and do it consistently. I think maybe in the eyes of Candice Cooley, it links back to the YouTube platform, the mentality of that, oh, I need to record this before I send it in to the police. I want to be able to look at this evidence and then share it public so other people can see before it's handed in to the police. I think it's more so the mentality, the attitude, and the style and method of coverage of the case. I don't think Candice Cooley likes or agrees the idea of finding stuff, well, someone finding stuff, and instead of handing it in and keeping it on the lower surface and not talking about it public, keeping it quiet basically. Because Lance isn't really doing that because he's sharing it with the general public, which is good of Lance. That's why someone like Candice Cooley is a bit annoyed with. Like with the bag of bones, the handling of that, fiddling around inside, trying to poke and prod at it. If it was truly Dylan, it's not exactly respectful. It could mess up the evidence in some way. But all Lance was simply doing at the time, at least, was trying to show it to the general public so they could see it themselves. So, you see what I'm saying? I guess, in the word of Candice Cooley, a double-edged sword. You do it for one reason, it leads to misunderstanding and criticism. You do it a different way, then it leads to criticism, right? Lance publicly showing it to the general public so they keep up to date with things. Negative, those who take the case very seriously and believe that things should be kept behind closed doors, like processing evidence or finding something very important. They don't agree with those that are revealing it more public. Kind of like with the Nicole Bully or Burley. I forgot how you say her last name. I'm sure someone will criticise me from the UK saying, oh, you said the name wrong. But that Nicole Bully case in the UK where she went missing for some length of time and there was supposedly people on TikTok, yeah, that says a lot, that were documenting the case, saying that they found stuff, recording it themselves before actually handing that stuff into the police, either because they never did, because it was fake, or they did at a later point, but it should have been the other way around at least. So you see that style and coverage, because it doesn't quite suit or fit with other people's ideas, then it's seen as doing it wrong and it's all bad, when it's not all bad, it's genuine, i.e. searching, though the actual material, items, evidence found probably shouldn't be recorded or uploaded public, instead kept behind closed doors and, handed over to the right people. So that's what I mean by the double-edged sword. Let me know your thoughts of that. As I said, make sure to check this video out. 23rd of March. Will be interesting to see the outcome of it. Now, if we brush that all aside, let's finally get on to the visual map itself. Out of quick interest, is it even possible to try and locate what Lance was pointing out to? I don't think it'll be possible on the spot. Which road was it? This one here, I assume, because this is the road going to Dylan's property. Was it somewhere down here? Does anyone know? Just referring to Lance's video. Maybe I have to check it out after to relocate it. Because it's the thing, some items pop up. I mean, from the shape of that little abandoned building what I saw in the thumbnail, does it remind me of anything personally? It's probably going to look flat because of the roof being flat. If you look at an aerial viewpoint, it's not going to be 3D like how some things are. It depends if it casts shadows. If it casts shadows like this, the grain shed, you know it's 3D, you know it's an actual standing thing, right? You can see the shadows. Whereas that there, which does cast a shadow quite a bit, so you can infer from that, but when I looked at that in the past, that like little square cube, if you want to call it, I thought it was like just some wood flat on the ground. But as we saw from Gloria and Dellen's video footage of the area, the property, and we saw up close, it was an actual small shed which Brenner had, which stored his horse supplies and bits and bobs, right? So looks can be deceiving. When you look at it on Google Earth, you've always got to take that in mind and be cautious. Though, I guess if we are looking on the maps and we see an object like that, doesn't mean to say it's flat. It could be like some kind of 3D box or shed. Not much stands out to me, at least. No. I mean, if you saw it or noticed it, you can list it down below. It's just weird how you got these like little cut-offs. And there's a vehicle there as well. And 2 people. What? This is what I find weird. How come I only see this now? And yet I never noticed it in the past. You know what I'm saying? This is 2019 imagery, so don't get too excited. But does anyone know who these people are or who that vehicle belongs to? It could simply be campers, hikers, visitors. But if there's any indication that it could be someone else there, But I guess the positive is, with knowing roughly when Brenner came into Lucin, with this being 2019, Brenner wasn't in Lucin at that time, so there wouldn't be a link. As we saw, his vehicle back in Montello, at least on this old, outdated satellite footage, if you want to call it that. Where is it, though? Well, it's near Sun Tunnel, so it makes sense. Though, just interesting where it is. It, like, parked at the side. That's just so weird. Wait, depending on which way am I looking? That is so weird. How the hell did I never see that before? I mean, like, you got that vehicle there. It's not that, like, bigger a thing, but it's just the amount of times I've come up and down this road on the maps. I've flipped the image. I've looked down at it. I've got to the crossroad part and I said you could either go left or right or carry on. And yet I've never really acknowledged that that car was there. The importance of this is to highlight that there's probably more things than what you actually see, right? You might make a note of things at a certain point. You might put little markers down. But, you know, you could still be missing things in between, you know? With the Kenny Veach case, people going out there hiking, searching for the cave, okay? So many people have found certain caves that look like this and that, but it's not really the actual one. And yet, the odd hiker found a cave which no one else has found or seen since or pointed out. So it must be a blind spot. And it's one of those things where even if you just miss the last remaining item in the area or place of interest, because the majority couldn't see it, it's like, well, what else have you missed? what else have you not seen? So the same can apply on the maps here and Lucin itself. You know, to be honest, when I first looked at the map of Lucin, it was like, what am I looking at? Oh, wow, this is so confusing because of the terrain and texture. It was very erratic. 1 minute it could look smooth and soft, then it's very rocky, very sandy, then it's red, then it's green, then it's grainy, then it's salty. And it's like, whoa, so much going on. Considering it is a quiet place, a ghost town, and yet there are things of interest when you start looking about. Yeah, it's weird. So I personally can't seem to find or see that structure. Okay. Maybe I'm not in the right area, but I am doing it blindly on the spot. And you get those like patches there, almost like in the shape of a desert island. Just looks a bit funny, out of place at times. There's Dylan's farm, as we've seen in this area. But look, this is the thing, not everything shows up clear, right? You've got to zoom in to really acknowledge it. And first of all, it's figuring out where do you zoom into? What do you specifically look at? Sometimes that can be a task in itself. Though, as said, one of the talking points at the start of this video was Don H location. And I think we should actually do a poll right now. The poll can be worded as, where do you think Don Hately is? And we'll go to each location from one to another. It might be a bit slower, this poll, okay? Is Don Hately in Oakley, Idaho? That's one option to vote from. Or is he in Burley, Idaho? One or the other. Next option can be, can I find it on the spot? Is Don Hately in Wyoming? Somewhere in Wyoming. That's the third option. What should be the fourth one? I don't know what the fourth option should be. Actually, you can only have 4 options to vote. Okay, the fourth one can be somewhere else. And then you type it down below where you think he's at. I mean, look, this is the thing. In defence of Don Hately and against, is that thing of, do you want to be starting a witch hunt against Don, who could be innocent? It wouldn't be fair, would it? When it comes to locations, do you want to be revealing the location of someone? No, not really, because it's a bit messy, isn't it? If it's of public information, then it's not so bad. But, you know, there's got to be some kind of border or boundary, because if not, you end up being like everyone else and the other people that start doxing and then revealing this or revealing that, and it's not good. It's not good. And as well, if for whatever reason a person was guilty and they've run away and then you reveal the location and they see it, they'll probably run away again. So you got to handle things, you know, somewhat carefully. So I guess one thing to acknowledge would be if people had a very, very strong idea and maybe actual proof, maybe it's best reaching out behind the scenes and not quite public. Though, you know, you're still welcome to vote on the poll because it's opinion based, I guess, and just let me know. These areas here, though, Burley, Idaho, does it have any significance? Well, we've heard of it mentioned before, right? To do with Dylan. Going to Cal Ranch Store, which is here in Burley, Idaho. Is it 100% confirmed? Well, it's been said by a couple of people. Candice Cooley, Justin have never brought it up, though it's probably not that significant to them, so they've never really needed to highlight it. Maybe they were never told about it. But yeah. Has anything else gone quiet in the Dylan Rounds case? The Walmart receipt, maybe? the polygraph test results by the different people involved. Could be. It just looks too populated here, though, for someone like Don. You know, with Weezer being a witness of Don Hately in Montello, post Dylan's disappearance Friday into the next week into Friday, and saw Don hanging out with Weezer's friends randomly. Didn't even know him, but just talking. That was a bit out of place. Weezer saying that Don normally keeps to himself. He's kind of quiet, though he might have the odd friend or two. So you'd think that Don may move elsewhere because there's not much going for him in Lucin, but going to a busy populated place like here probably, I don't know, just doesn't seem as practical unless it's on the outer skirts, though there's a lot of farming area and I guess that's private. What about Oakley though? I mean, you got more opportunity here, I guess. It doesn't seem as busy. And this is one of the first places suggested by people, by the likes of Ellen Berg, I think Tom Evans at one point. This was briefly touched upon. You got the outer skirts, the mountainous parts. Maybe you could get a trailer somewhere. Or maybe Don is at some kind of trailer park, surrounded by a couple of people, but not many, where it's quieter, but you can still talk to the odd person, maybe. I mean, it's just one of those things where, because there's a little bit of mystery behind Don Hately, and there's a little bit of suspicion, and maybe how he's behaved and things he's done here and there, he could just be one of those individuals that's been misunderstood, okay? I mean, can't really use it as the best example because it's split down the middle, but like how you got people that support Kurt Wadsworth and believe he's innocent, though others strongly believe he's not innocent. At least in my angle, the reason why I'm a little bit suspicious of Kurt Wadsworth is his behaviour at times. He doesn't do himself any favours if he's trying to be innocent, if he really is. You know, like that. And that's why people then start getting suspicious and maybe assuming that the play role. So with Don Hately suddenly being talkative all of a sudden, suddenly up and going and leaving Lucin all of a sudden, just that erratic behaviour, that's what adds in. And, you know, the fact that he's long-time friends with Brenner, that doesn't really help either. Just wanted to touch upon this, more of a discussion point, of course. I can't really home in on one particular spot because I don't genuinely know where Don is. But we can at least point out possible locations. Where do people get these locations from in the first place, you know, of these individuals? Let's say the BS ones, the false leads where it doesn't lead to anything. And it's like, how did they get that place to begin with, right? In the Kenny Veach case, some people just simply made it up on the spot. There in the Dylan Rounds case, it's like they're retrieving information from somewhere. And it'd be good to know the origins. Is it all from one place, one person, or is it just spread out? Leave your thoughts about that. Ooh, I think we've zoomed out a little bit too much there. Oops. Let's focus back in Lucin, just to centre our thoughts. Here we are. So, we've got to talk about Brenner and Don being around one another. Particular events. Well, what would be one of the first ones? I mean, one of the first ones, if it really was the case, which Candice Cooley has said wasn't, but Ty Corbin has said it did happen. The likes of Don Hately searching about looking for Dylan. And possibly Brenner helping as well. Makes you think. But Candice Cooley said that didn't happen. It should have happened in a way because they're like neighbours, so they should be trying to look for Dylan. But Candice Cooley believes strongly that they didn't. And other people too. Ty Corbin saying that he did see at the time, can't remember the exact date, or the timestamp, but Don Haley did come across Don Haley searching about, saying he was looking for the last 3 days and he was really upset. Interesting. It is in a way. I mean, if it really was the case, it shows that Don isn't as cold as Brenner. And yet those differing emotions, and yet Don and Brenner supposedly got on. So, opposites, maybe. But let's put that rough example aside. The spring cleaning June the 2nd, right? Candice Cooley said that Brenner put bags in his truck, near to his truck. And then he took a trip down to Wendover, and Don Haley tagged along. What were they doing going down to Wendover? Well, we've done previous videos in the past looking at it, trying to figure out what's down there. Why would you? Is it the landfill, tip, waste disposal? Get rid of the bin bags that way. We've looked at that, we've questioned it. So let's track back just a little bit. What about before getting to Wendover? Maybe there was another reason why they were going down there. Not primarily to dispose of the bags, but just to go down there because they wanted to. But along the way, they disposed of it. Is this tying in with Lance Kelly and some of his beliefs when he's been searching about trying to retrace them? Probably should rotate the screen as well. Just doing it one-handed at the moment. There we go. Just flip the image. Candice Cooley saying that Brenner would likely take the back roads, going to wherever. If you're going to go to Wendover, regardless, end of the day, it makes sense to go south from Lucin because you follow the path, you follow the dirt road adjacent to that dried up lake, or how it appears here. And eventually it connects onto the 80 or the 93 highway, which goes into Wendover, right? So it makes sense going that way. It's probably the quickest way too. But what about the journey itself? Was there any opportunities to dispose of the bags? Unfortunately, I don't think we've got street view imagery anywhere around here. No, we don't. What's that road there? I just randomly check this road out because I don't think I've ever looked at it. Oh, wait, is it going to be one of those where it doesn't load in? No street view available. What does this go up to? Is this mining? There's a sign there. Don't know if we can get close to it. I can't read that, unfortunately. But it looks like mining. Correct me if I'm wrong. Big mounds of dirt as well. Is that a train? Looks like it. I just wanted to at least get down to, ground level. Is that Pilot Peak over there? I'm not sure. Could be. Nice distance. I'm not saying this is the area where Brenner took the bags, but I just wanted to at least go on some kind of street view whilst I'm narrating over, okay? Really, it's way over that way we should be looking. Further over that way. I don't know, it just seems to help when you can just look at a photo and just visualize it. And if not that, you can, maybe not close your eyes, but just focus in on the screen. And maybe it makes it a little bit easier to hear what's going on. Almost like as a bit of a distraction from chaos, what might be going on in chat from times to times, right? You need something else to focus on. Maybe this can help. But we know it's vast, of course. Although it's vast, there's a lot of land and opportunity to dig a hole and bury stuff. When it comes to the trash bags, do any of you think Brenner buried them? Let's do a poll right now. Post spring cleaning, disposing of those trash bags from the grain shed, where do you think they were put? Or how do you think they were disposed of? Do you think they were taken down to Wendover to be disposed of? Do you think they were dumped or buried on the journey on the way down to Wendover, such as on the dirt roads, what we've just looked at previous? Or do you have any other ideas? List down below. I mean, were they buried or were they just dumped on the side? That's one thing to take in mind. You know, if Brenner and Don Hately are in the same vehicle and Don was to dispose of something, maybe Don would say, hey, there are better ways of getting rid of it, right? We're referring back to that with the hierarchy of evidence, where we were like, you know, Brenner seems to do a bit of a sloppy job in a way, though he's been successful disposing of Dylan, at least. But what about the items, the evidence? Not so good. But did Don Hately return any items or hide any items successfully? Well, if it's anything to do with the gun and key fob, which people believe Candice Cooley is just grasping at straws at this point, if it was done, he was at least successful in cleaning the prints off it, so he didn't get done for it. So you could say that's a success, though it was highlighted that they were returned back, so it was noticed, which wasn't a success. As for the phone, found in the pond wasn't really a success. Definitely not when you think of it now. Like, maybe the video was actually deleted from the phone, but retrieved afterwards by that forensic analysis. That idea of thinking of chucking it in the water would get rid of the stuff for good. And yeah, it didn't. With the phone being some of the strongest evidence due to that video recording upon it. That phone should have been completely destroyed, and yeah, it wasn't. So, you know, overall, got lucky, but the suspects, Brenner mainly, Brenner only, didn't do a good job. Like, how else could you have done it? I mean, you've seen it in the past where people may stamp on a phone, snap it in half, crack the screen, take the SIM card out or something, put a phone in a microwave, do all different types of methods of disposal. You can destroy it, then dispose it, or just simply dispose it. Why did Brenner not destroy the phone, like smash it upon the ground into little pieces, or even shot at it, you know? Or maybe put it into some kind of fire desperately. Maybe it's because Brenner just didn't feel like there was all that evidence upon the phone. Oh, there's a cattle grid. There's a cattle grid to prevent cows and animals like that from crossing over it because the hoofs get stuck in it. Is it to deter them? And what is it with these dodgy fences, the way they're like collapsing over one another? Looks like it's been crashed into by a car. I believe that should be the highway, I think. Oh, there you go. You got the 80 and the 93 highway interstate. So, freeway entrance. Can we actually get onto it? Maybe we can. Or we can go underneath the bridge as well. At this point, we're just casually looking about, okay, whilst also talking. I know in the past when we did look at the desert area, we came across some interesting items like that. Was it a giant fist? Yeah, there was a giant fist. And then there was like some robot as well. Weird what shows up at times, definitely. I suppose there's no like graffiti underneath the bridges. I know it's in like desert area, but you know, you look at other locations where people have been in desert places and they've been vandalized, so I'm just surprised. So I believe this might be the actual highway, and over there is Wendover, I believe. And there's a dirt road over that way which connects onto the highway eventually. And somewhere over there should be going into Lucin, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. So somewhere over that way, coming down from it, so coming down south. Got another cattle grid there. Oh, what's that? Oh, there's not much. Looks like you got a farm over there, ranch. And trailers. Oh, there's a random trailer right there. Oh, it's weird how the camera goes. It's like a parking point. Could be. Got some like nature stuff there. Don't know how up to date this stuff is because I can't see a date. I mean, there's like some stuff where it says 2022, so I assume it's 2022 footage. But then again, it might not always be the case. I think, well, if you're on Google Earth PC, it's easier to navigate the actual date of imagery, especially when you're on Street View. Okay, let's just back out of this for a second. Yeah, so I think we're kind of looking the correct way. Pilot Peak. Yeah, I'm just surprised that no one's added their own additional photos. You know, those little blue dots. I'm just surprised like Lance Kelly or maybe Ty Corbin haven't uploaded their own photos to the map so people can get a good look at it on ground level. It would be more up to date and more relevant. Unless they don't know how to do it or they're not aware of it, but I think that could be pretty useful, don't you? Just randomly load one up. We may have already seen this, so we'll just have a brief look. Yeah, we saw that one with the robot. And then the bunker. Yeah. That weird red laser, whatever that is. Wild stuff can show at times. True. If there is anyone in the chat right now observing, and we're looking at something like, what about somewhere down this dirt road? Does that need to be searched all the way down? Anywhere down here, going down to Wendover, where Brenner at some point could have chucked the bags out the window? Well, I don't know, it just seemed like it would stand out, wouldn't it, with it being all flat land. Whereas previous, with Lance and Ty, Bald Eagle Mountain, with it being away from majority of humans, higher up, less people coming and going there, and kind of concealed as well by all that vegetation you see and the steep slopes, you could get away with it there. Though Lance still managed to detect it, if you remember, when they were driving past and then he had to reverse back and then decided to take a look and it was hiding underneath a tree. So, okay, I was surprised that they were able to, see it at the time as they caught the, cornered the eye. For it to be on lower ground here somewhere just doesn't seem as practical. It should be recovered as soon as possible. Ty Corbin gave his opinion last night, thinking that maybe the LE did watch Brenner during the spring cleaning June the 2nd and then maybe followed him afterwards. If they followed him afterwards, were they able to successfully retrieve those bags and what was in them? Was it bags of evidence of Dylan himself? Well, it can't be Dylan himself because they're still saying that Dylan has not been retrieved yet, and that was in those public formal statements and press release and court documents. So, what other evidence could it be if they did find it? The wallet? Maybe. It gets to a point where certain evidence doesn't seem as important as other pieces. And some of those important pieces of evidence have been talked about public. So if there's any other evidence that isn't as important, so like you compared the wallet to that video recording of Brenner, which one would you say is more important? I'd say the video recording of Brenner. Would that be more important? And it already been released public, then they might as well release the wallet public as well as found. You know, that's just an example I'm talking about. In the early stages of the case, any evidence is important, right? And should be treated the same as one another. Whereas time goes on, if you built up a strong enough case with all that evidence, is there any more that could come along the way that isn't considered as important but still relevant? Would that be released as soon as possible or not? Is it the same procedure for every bit of evidence, or is there a little hierarchy going on? I'd say there's a level of hierarchy, of course. Right, if I was to give you my opinion of those bin bags, what was truly in them? Well, you think about the grain shed, it still looked like a mess, such as the cans on the floor, the hay, straw scattered about, spread out, a mess, right? Was any of that cleared up? No. So if that wasn't cleared up, what the hell is a spring cleaning? Probably code name for get rid of the last bits of evidence. Though, if Brenner thought of that, oh, I'll go into the grain shed and I'll take this and take that away, then why did he not do the same with his shirt in his trailer? If there are police on site, like right then, June 2nd, because a sheriff did approach Brenner and question him, if they're doing what they're doing, and Brenner's like, right, I best clean out the grain shed just in case the police go in there and find anything. It's like, well, what about your own trailer? Your own trailer where some items are at, such as the clothing. Did it not come to his mind? You know, seems to be kind of like a split with Brenner. You might make the odd, somewhat noteworthy, intelligent move, practical step to get rid of this or that. And then he just completely undoes it all with the previous mistake and recklessness. So, don't know why. It is kind of odd. But then at the same time, it's kind of odd snapping out of nowhere and taking out Dylan. It's not really necessary. Maybe he can't control it. Maybe he can't also control Brenner himself when it comes to effectively clearing up after himself post Dylan. Yeah. Is there anything else to highlight before we move on? I don't really think so. Am I correct in saying that Lance Kelly has been down here searching about? Or is it further up? Let me know, because of course I can't track and watch every single video, but I remember it being mentioned about the trip to Wendover and Lance Kelly searching about, trying to look for the trash bags. So there is that. Do any of you feel that the trash bags have been found, though? You know, they've been retrieved by the police, but they've just not been talked about public. I'd say if that was the case, you know, would it be recent or back in the past? If it was back in the past, why has it not been talked about public, released since? Is it that important? It can't be Dylan because, as I said, they've not found him, they've not located him. So what other items could be of that importance? I don't know. And with Candice Cully saying there was about 4 to 8 bin bags, that's quite a few. I don't know how big the bin bags were, if they were small, medium or large, but that's quite a few bin bags to be putting items into. That's what would make me believe probably clothing. But whose clothing? Can't be Brenner's, because Brenner, at the scene of the crime, also recorded on that phone. The police were able to retrieve his shirt with the blood on, so it couldn't have been that. Dylan's clothing? I guess the only way to figure that out would be is if and when the family do finally come across and find Dylan, is he clothed or not? If he's not, then likely they probably ended up in those trash bags. But what else? Tissues, paper, to try and dab up the blood from the ground, I don't know. trying to shovel out some dirt and put it into bags to get rid of that blood stain on the ground so it doesn't look as obvious. Bits of scrap. I don't know. It can't be too sharp or heavy, or the bags would probably tear and the stuff would fall out. Don't know how durable those trash bags are in America, but fair quantity of trash bags to be getting rid of stuff. Either, well, with it being several bags, it must have been bits of stuff. Like, I mean, I know some people would put the argument across and say body parts, right? I guess that's the only other thing you could possibly suggest. But then again, if police have been inside of the grain shed, surely they would have seen the body parts somehow. But as a rough way of saying it kind of makes sense, but it probably could be debunked. But I understand why people may think that bin bags, Dylan chopped up, bits of him placed in each bag, because you're not going to fit a whole body in a bag, so you put it in separate ones. Just like with serial killers, they've done the same thing in the past, right? So you see a pattern there, at least. The fact that Dylan has not been found yet, and the fact that the trash bags have not been found yet, they could tie in together, right? The term desecration, although on a basic level could just simply mean hidden and concealed, and that is all. The term desecration can apply to also removing a body, but it can also apply to disturbing a body, like cutting it up or burning it, right? So there's all these different ties and links. Are they 100% confirmed? No, but there's no harm in suggesting them, starting a discussion point. Of course, you can share your thoughts to, if you agree with any of that, down below in the chat, in the comment section. I think for now, it's time to wrap it up and move on to the main focus of this video and look deep into Brenner and my opinion and summary of him, which led to the event of Dylan being murdered. So the next two slides are going to be focused and centered on Brenner. I feel it's appropriate timing to do it, considering he's already been charged now, and it's just mainly to do with finding Dylan's remains. We can partially look back at this moment and try and understand what was going on in Brenner's mind, the triggers, possibilities, the combinations, anything long-standing, right? And maybe counter some points as well. So here's the first slide. You got Brenner in the background, and you got all these arrows pointing off from one another. So I listed and highlighted that number one of the main issues was Brenner's anger and snapping. He would snap at unexpected times, right? So towards a victim, they might not really have much chance to defend themselves. They're caught off guard. So it works in Brenner's favour in a way. But because it's unexpected, you may not be able to avoid Brenner. When it comes to his anger, possibly a short fuse. But where did all this anger originate from? Maybe we can explain that shortly. But yeah, that anger, which makes him do things other people wouldn't normally. The snapping, which makes it erratic, uncontrollable. That's the main thing. He can't control himself. He snaps. Kind of like how dogs do at times. They just randomly start attacking a human. And it's like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? It's lost its mind almost. Because you think back, with Brenner and Dylan in the past, they've been working together with custom farming, with the pigs, right? Brenner has also had anger issues towards Justin in the past, from what we've heard a couple of years ago, because Justin was upset with Brenner and the pig situation opposite his grandfather's house. And Brenner didn't like being spoken to in that way, so he threatened Justin and said, "I'll shoot you." That's not looking good, is it? So you got a few little trigger points popping in, which activate his anger, which activate him snapping. We go to the second key issue and point, which can also link back to a possible snap down the line, and that's Brenner's long-standing jealousy with Dylan, as highlighted by Justin Rounds back in, I think, 2021 winter time. Brenner, Don, Justin's worker working for him, and Dylan were all in one place at a time in Justin's shop. And when Dylan wasn't present, that's when Brenner started speaking bad about Dylan, but in a jealous way. Oh, how could he have this? How could he have that when he can't control it well? When he mishandles the equipment, he doesn't know what he's doing. You know, that level of jealousy, because Brenner didn't have what Dylan had at that time, I guess, and still doesn't. He thinks, how can Dylan have all that? Calling Dylan out, being spoiled and bragging with all the money he's got. That's what Justin relayed from hearing what Brenner had to say. Okay? So you see that jealousy, and that was back in 2021. So a couple of years for it to manifest, to intensify, right? So it's a background motive. You might have a trigger, which makes him snap, and you got a background motive which fuels and kind of excuses his actions, makes it justified to why he did that to Dylan, right? That's kind of like the order. And speaking of trigger, on the third option, third key point, 28th of May 2022, the horse gate damaged by Dylan. Now, we're trying to figure out what was the horse gate, where's it at? Like, really, where is it? Is it the gate approaching the Grangeshed property? Or, as Candice and Justin worded it, when Dylan supposedly was reversing back, he backed into the horse gate. What we've seen was the Grangeshed inside, there was a gate on the side within. And then there was another piece of a gate on the opposite side, but it looked slightly damaged. So we're trying to figure out maybe that what it was. Because if the horse stays in the Grangeshed most of the time, that's like its little home, if you want to call it that, where it will seek shelter. And there's a gate within to keep the horse in. If Dylan was reversing back into the shed, he may have not noticed about the gate being locked and then crashed into it that way. Startled the horse maybe. Could the horse have ran off? I don't know. But something like that could have caused a crash sound, annoyed Brenner. Brenner came out thinking, what's going on? He sees it, he notices it, and he's like, oh, not again, not again. Then that long-standing jealousy, that grudge against Dylan, Brenner realises, oh God, it's Dylan. I didn't expect he was going to return back. And then that's when he snaps. So the destruction of the horse gate is the trigger. The long-standing jealousy is the background grudge boiling away with time, and an additional reason to justify his actions and his reactions towards Dylan in taking him out. So you can kind of see that Brenner does have a snap mentality on the spot, though when you look back at past behaviour towards a singular person such as Dylan, there's always been a level of tension around and a level of hatred, right? That's what you got to take in mind. And we look at these arrows, how it links back. The 28th of May, damage to the horse gate is a trigger. And you see that arrow, the black one, which points all the way back to Brenner's anger and snap. The trigger causes Brenner to get angry, and he snaps and acts out uncontrollably. If you was to interview him at some point and say, why did you do what you do? Brenner may add in the second point on screen saying, oh, because I'm so jealous of Dylan. You probably wouldn't word it like that, but you could infer from it in that way because of his tone of voice and his attitude, his outlook on Dylan. So there's some of the key points I've mentioned to do with more so the day when it all happened, when it all went down. We don't just stop there. We need to move on to additional factors which may be taken into mind, right? Which could explain why he snaps, why he's aggressive, why he's jealous. Okay? These are the additional factors. First one, protectiveness. He seems very protective over certain possessions. And yes, that can apply to people as well. Although I know humans don't always like that term being described as a possession, in certain situations with certain people in life. That's how people visualize it, right? So could that have happened with Brenner? I mean, it seems evident to an extent, like with the horse. Brenner's horse, very protective of it. If the horse gets harmed, I guess he'll do whatever it takes to help the horse or to get revenge on a person that caused harm to the horse. Has the horse ever been harmed in the past? Not from what I know of, though the horse has been impacted to an extent when some individual in the past left one of the gates open to the property or the grain shed, didn't shut it, didn't lock it. The horse got out, was running about. Brenner had to go after it and retrieve it, and he was angry, very angry. I guess, like, who could do this? Why would you do this? Why are you so reckless? Look at the stress you've caused me. Look at what you've done to this horse, right? So he's protective. He wants the horse to be safe. Now, when it comes to humans, we think back now, was Brenner really protective over people he loved? I don't think that's available at this moment in time. And as well, reinforcing with what we've seen recently as a counterpoint, in 1983, threatening his then wife at the time, possibly with a firearm, not exactly being protective when he's dishing it out on the person he loves or should love, right, based off the status. So he's not exactly protective there, though at a later point down the line through the years, he seemed somewhat protective with that confrontation, I believe, in Montello. Was it Saddlesaw Bar? When Brenner was waving his gun about. Was it towards Chase Venstra, Aviles, or some other guys? Maybe Kurt was present. And this was to do with the Becky situation, who was a girlfriend of Brenner at the time, but maybe, I believe, Becky had other relationships. And I think maybe Brenner was warning other people off, hence why he was waving a gun about, maybe fired a warning shot. It might be very rough the way I worded it. If it needs correcting or refining, feel free to do that. But that's kind of like on a rough note of what I've heard of. And it has been said a few times now that Chase Venstra, if I'm correct in saying, Chase Venstra did have a relationship with Becky at some point. Now, was that during the time Becky was with Brenner or not? Either way, whether Brenner was with Becky at that time or not, Brenner most likely got defensive because of that and wanted to warn people off. And he's like, hey, don't do this with this person. Don't do that. They're mine, right? So Brenner's possessions, whether it be an animal, an object, or a person, if it belongs to him or he feels like they belong to him, he's going to make sure they don't get harmed. And if they do in some way or get impacted, which then impacts him, he will retaliate and show anger and obviously snap, right? So if you applying it to the day Dylan was taken out because of the horse situation, and that seems to be reinforced more, right, with how Brenner's reacted in the past, protective and caring of his horse. If Dylan accidentally hurt the horse or simply startled it or caused it to flee once again, you can understand why Brenner did what he did, just based off his motives at least, right? Because in the past, that person, whoever it was that left the gate open to the Grainshed property, they were never caught, and I don't think they ever returned back, so Brenner could never get his hands on that individual. Though because Dylan was on site at the time and Brenner witnessed it, Brenner had the opportunity to take it out on Dylan, whereas he didn't in the past. So that could be another sub-reason to why Brenner did what he did. In the past, he couldn't get justice. So Brenner thought, now it's time to avenge myself and really hammer it home. So that's one of the factors, at least. And that what ties to the irrational thinking, acting rash, not taking things into consideration. Sometimes if you're overprotective, it can be unhealthy and it can be unnecessary and it can be due to irrational thoughts. Overprotective because something bad could happen to whatever. Very protective because maybe you feel like you truly don't have control or power over something or someone or the way situations can go. So you do as much as you can to bring and take back control, even though it doesn't quite work. But then it leads to being irrational. And it leads to being irrational and not really thinking things through. You're not really controlling your thoughts. If you're not controlling your thoughts, then you might end up snapping. And because we know he does snap, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. Now, moving on to the next point, and this is where it ties in with the hatred and the jealousy point, what we mentioned on the previous slide, ageism. Maybe to an extent, Brenner has a problem with people younger than him. Maybe not literally every younger person out there in the US or the entire world, but at least from maybe Brenner's experiences, how he's portrayed situations and behaviour from individuals, those people, how they've reacted, responded to him, or what they just simply have, and what's associated with their behaviour and attitude. Maybe Brenner's mindset is warped, or maybe he genuinely believes, if it is true, that the younger people he's come across, newer generations of people to this day, aren't as grateful anymore, or they're more reckless these days, they're more demanding, they expect more but won't work hard enough. It's all me, millennial entitled attitude. That can apply in real life, realistically. But Brenner himself, will he be thinking to that depth? Probably not. Though because he snaps, because he can't control himself at times, and because thoughts and feelings can lead to anger, because it's a feeling that and an emotion, which leads to a reaction, something physical, which we've seen previous. And then I don't think he'll be mentally thinking it through, demonstrating introspection of what he's feeling, what exactly he's thinking, why he sees it that way. We've been rash, a little bit protective, all over the place, a roller coaster of emotions, maybe a lot going on in one's head at certain points at times, right? I said, to highlight, it's not about excusing his actions, it's about trying to understand why he did what he did, and was there any moments where it could have been prevented. Whilst, yes, the main focus is Dylan Round's legacy to help other people down the line and other families to prevent the same that happened to the Round and Cooley family from happening again, to spread awareness so other families don't have to go through that, right? So with Brenner, it's like, is there any patterns, signs, early warnings which could have been prevented, which could have been intervened, some kind of intervention, which then stopped Brenner from harming any more people out there? And if so, could it be applied to other humans out there? Most likely, yes, to an extent. And obviously, it's already been underway for many years in many different countries with many different crimes and cases. It's obviously been long-standing that. And we're just particularly concentrating on Brenner himself. But yeah, the ageism factor. I mean, you got to understand that Brenner did physically attack a 69-year-old in 2021. He threatened his wife back in 1983. Don't know what age, but maybe the same age as him or near to it. Also threatened Justin Rounds, who is younger than Brenner, but not that young, I guess. So, there's a level of balance to an extent in that maybe you could put the argument across that Brenner, whether he's just threatened someone or physically attacked, hurt someone, it's been of different ages. He doesn't focus on a particular individual, right? You could look at it like that. He targets anyone, everyone, and that's what reinforces his snap mentality. He doesn't think. Because he doesn't think, it's not planned, nor is the actual designated target. Though, you could suggest that because of the jealousy factor, with Justin, Candy's highlighting it themselves, Brenner being jealous, a grudge forming to an extent, a background reason to hate Dylan in the first place, and it just happens to tie in with Dylan being younger than him, right? That hatred forms because Brenner's like, how does Dylan have all this and yet I don't? And obviously, there'll be certain factors to explain why he doesn't have what Dylan has, though. Maybe it's partially down to a different time, had less back then compared to now, less chances, possibly, different background, different growing up, different family, less, more restrictive, I don't know, because we don't know that far back, but there's a lot of different possibilities and different pathways to look down, you know what I'm saying? But would Brenner have been any more angry if it was an older person? I think he'd be equally as angry. It's just that in this case, it just so happens that Dylan is younger than him. Just so happens that Brenner may not like someone younger than him speaking down to him. Someone who is less experienced due to age, yet more experienced than Brenner due to Dylan and all his farming. Brenner may not be able to quite comprehend that and think, what the hell's going on here? How is this the case? I can't believe this. Could Brenner at any point have felt embarrassed that Dylan was more successful than Brenner himself? I don't know. I mean, it couldn't have been that much of a problem because if Brenner's been described by Candice Cooley as a slob and careless, carefree, and exploiting certain things, possibly, then he doesn't really care that much. But, you got to question all these different points. So we move on to the next point, alcoholic. I put a question mark because from what we've seen, he has consumed alcohol, but obviously there's a difference between someone that just drinks alcohol regularly, but not over the top, and someone who's an alcoholic who has a lot, has issues in different ways, and of course, if withdrawing from it, major issues. So I don't know what line or what spectrum does Brenner fall upon. Do people in the chat agree that Brenner is an alcoholic? Because I've not personally seen Brenner in real life drunk. I couldn't really tell. As for most of the crimes Brenner has committed in the past, is there any reason to believe alcohol played a part? Because in general, in life, like with the UK, you get a load of piss heads. They're fueled by the alcohol. It increases their aggression levels, and they can get very physical. But the same can apply to females who could get physical or more just verbal and gobby when they're drunk. Right? So it acts as a fuel to the fire. If there is something already in place, such as long-standing jealousy with Brenner towards Dylan, which is a grudge forming, possibly ageism kicking in, the jealousy/hatred combination. Third-party factors have been very protective of the horse, which Dylan may have just triggered within Brenner due to damaging a horse gate. You see how all these arrows start linking together. And if by any fact that Brenner was drinking in the early hours of the morning or recovering from a hangover the previous day, that could have altered Brenner's behaviour too. Maybe he was more moody than usual, more angry than usual, a shorter fuse than usual, right? At least when the family came down, which was a few days later, 30th of May, Justin Candice Cooley said that they were talking to Brenner, and Brenner was talking about how Dylan backed into a horse gate and that Dylan ended up not being good with a gun. This is what was mentioned yesterday on that Crime and Network show when doing that separate interview with Candice Cooley. Candice Cooley saying that Brenner said to her on the 30th of May that Dylan wasn't good in a fight, that he couldn't put up a good fight, that he's useless with a handgun and he doesn't know how to use it and he would just throw it at someone. What? Where did that come from? You know what I'm saying? Never heard of that before. It's almost like Brenner was saying that literally they got into a fight and Brenner couldn't fight back, that Dylan couldn't fight back and Brenner just easily took control of him. It was like there and then on the spot was Brenner admitting in a way, but not saying that he was the one responsible or that's what exactly happened to Dylan's disappearance. Bit of a weird thing that to say. But at least Kenny's Cooley and Justin did not say Brenner was drunk at the time when they went or when the police were present. So he wasn't drunk then. But was he drunk a few days before on the 28th? Does anyone know? Does anyone have ideas? Let me know if you think Brenner was drunk on the 28th during daytime or the day before. As for post Dylan's disappearance, it doesn't really matter if he was drunk or not because the damage was already done. Though, isn't it possible that if you're drunk, it can lead to memory loss or you end up forgetting what you did the previous day? Could that have played a factor in any way possible? I mean, Brenner did say that he was willing to give up the location of Dylan Rounds if some kind of plea deal could be made. So it seems like Brenner still knows, which is a positive in a way. But did Brenner forget anything he did due to the alcohol? I'm not sure. It seems though, end of the day, alcohol or not, Brenner does have higher aggression levels and a bit of a short temper, short fuse. So really, if you added alcohol, yes, it will make it even worse, but without, it's not really going to calm him either, right? Speaking of withdrawal, obviously that's what's happened with Brenner since whilst being in Weber County Jail. And it looks like he's managed to recover somewhat successfully. He's not dropped dead. He's not become suddenly ill. So he's managed that at least. Let me know your thoughts. Anything else here? Yeah, just a final fact to bottom right corner of the screen, which is the deepest one, which probably won't be answered until down the line. And that is growing up, the environment, nature, nurture, debate. Was it nature, how he was born, within him, his mind, his brain, chemical imbalance, any damage to the frontal or rear lobe? Do you have a damage to the amygdala? I don't know. Damages to the brain, genetics, any of that could have caused Brenner to be angry most of the time, to snap uncontrollably. Any of that possible. And if not, or not quite, the nurture aspect, how he was brought up, primary, secondary forms of socialization and the agencies around the primary and secondary agencies. Primary being the caregiver, the caretaker, the family, them themselves, mother, father. Secondary would be external people, friends of friends, general public, the environment he was in. All those factors. Was Brenner brought up in a household where it was violent, it was inappropriate, there was bad stuff going on? Did one of the family members get hurt by another, possibly? Was it just simply the environment Brenner was in? It was rough, it was poor, there was a lot of crime going on around. So by seeing all this bad stuff, it was enough to fuel him to retaliate back down the line, to get revenge or avenge someone, or just simply that's all he's ever known, violence, anger, aggression, because he's been brought up in that environment. So he sees that as normal to him. So when he does bad stuff down the line, it's not out of the ordinary for him. He feels he's done nothing wrong because that's all he knows in life. That's one way of looking at it. The most important point to mention is all of this questioning and trying to understand Brenner isn't the ultimate goal at the end of the day, considering that Dylan is still missing. Dylan needs to be found. Where this sort of questioning towards Brenner is often what you would see, like with the serial killers, years on, where they go back to that killer and interview him one-on-one, Because like as of right now, you couldn't be doing these sort of interviews with Brenner from like what Candice Cooley said. Brenner's attorney or something has more control and power and the final say to whether interviews take place or not. So even if Brenner wanted to do an interview with Candice Cooley or someone else, it probably would be rejected. So most likely it would be later on down the line. And I'm sure later on down the line, I'm going to make a prediction right now. If it doesn't happen now, sometime down the line, Candice Cooley, Justin, or both of them at the same time, may well talk to Brenner to try and understand why did Brenner do what he did. You know? I think that will eventually happen. If it's not by them, some kind of news crew, documentary, whatever you call it. Let me know your thoughts. I guess the other thing to acknowledge is that Candice Cooley and Justin said that Brenner was very cold. He didn't really show much emotion. Didn't make it seem like he's just killed Dylan. At least when Candice Cooley and Justin confronted him on the 30th to figure out what happened, Brenner didn't just like break down or confess. He was cold and as he normally is. So it shows it didn't really impact him. Although from what we've seen, Brenner has never killed anyone before. With it happening for the first time now, it didn't seem to faze Brenner. So what, are you going to start throwing in is Brenner a psychopath all of a sudden? Is Brenner some kind of sociopath? If you're a sociopath, you hate just about all humans, right? Do you have to literally hate all humans, or can you be a sociopath but still like at least one human on this earth? I don't know. Psychopath, just cold, right? Do something bad, so what? Don't normally say that. Early stages of a psychopath or something is where you start taking it out on animals in a negative way, and then you work your way up. Maybe Brenner in the past did something like that. He might have harmed animals, but then again, that kind of counters that point out, considering that Brenner is protective and caring towards his animal, right? So, in a weird way, you could say there's a soft side, some kind of sensitive side to Brenner when it comes to animals. Is it because in the past when he was growing up, he felt and experienced bad things at the hands of humans, though he always sought comfort and refuge in animals around him, such as if he was brought up on a farm? He might have witnessed physical, verbal actions going on in the household. So he may have ran down to the barn, ran down to where the animals were at, and there was a horse there, comforted him. Fast forward years on, he has his own horse now, and he always thinks of that past animal back then that brought him safety and comfort. He sees that within, what's the name of that horse, Briscoe or something, at the Grangeshed property. So when another human comes on in and invades his personal space or harms, threatens indirectly his animal, he's like, whoa. You're not going to get away with that. You're not going to do this. If that's the only thing Brenner has left in life, he probably would protect it quite strongly. You know what I'm saying? I guess you also got to acknowledge that Brenner still was friends with Don Hately, at least, right? So he didn't literally hate everyone. And you also got to acknowledge that at the end of the day, despite everything that's happened and things that have happened in the past, all that time in between throughout the timelines, Brenner still put up with other humans, right? And as we heard in the past, with Brenner being close to, well, in proximity at least, close in proximity to Candice Cooley's home at the time, where Justin was, and Brenner both staying in a trailer nearby because of custom farm-related work. Brenner didn't snap back then. Brenner didn't go on a killing spree back then. So it's like there's phases, periods where there's a level of calmness or just simply compliance, right? That's how it seems to be. Is there anything else we need to acknowledge here? I mean, like with the alcohol point, Kurt Wadsworth drinks alcohol, just happens to be under the influence of it when it comes to all these different interviews. He ends up saying things, which then at a later point when he may not be drunk, does the opposite. So we have associated in the past, if you're drunk, alcoholic, you may end up revealing the truth, right? And kind of awkward, but still needs to be highlighted. that time when, in the early days, when Jim Terry was kind of like talking, interviewing Ellen Berg, and Ellen Berg must have been drunk at the time. And Jim Terry said his method was to get the conversation going and just to keep it flowing on and on and on. So Ellen would drink more and more and more alcohol. So there's high chances that the truth would be revealed. Because when someone's drunk, they often tell the truth. Did that apply with Ellen Berg? Don't think so. Like, it wasn't directly about Dylan, from what I can remember. They said it's a long time ago, but if any of you in the chat can remember it better than I do, make sure to leave a point down below in the chat if it was effective there. We did have that dodgy run-in, which people have looked at, where Ellen Berg and Kurt Wadsworth were very drunk together and talked about going out to take Dylan out, even though he's already dead. That was a little bit awkward, though, as some people have highlighted, when you are drunk, you can do or say silly things which aren't always true. But it's one of those things where it can get very complex and messy at times. You know, there'll be moments where someone's drunk and they will tell the truth and reveal something shocking. Then there'll be other times where someone will say something shocking, but it's not actually meant or the truth. So you got to try and untangle all of that. It's not often easy, right? And I think the same applies to Brenner. At this moment in time, it's not exactly easy to understand to how Brenner is and why he did what he did. I know most humans at this moment in time will just brush it aside. Well, Brenner's snapping, Brenner's aggressive, end of. And it's like, I think there's a little bit more to that, though. Down the line, it'll probably be revealed and it'll come out more. I also feel to an extent that this video that looks into the mindset of Brenner may end up being somewhat true down the line, but I feel that this video may get forgotten. Kind of like what I mentioned at the start of this video, where someone like me can mention this and mention that, but it falls on deaf ears. Then down the line, some big established channel or some news thing says the same exact thing, literally what I said, and then it's like, wow, breaking news. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I've never thought of that before. And then you think, years back, Warlike Raf said this, Warlike Raf said that. So everyone right now, you know, including the Ratatouilles and the rejects, right now, make a mental note of everything I've said regarding Brenner in this video, what was mentioned just before. Visualize it, internalize it, try to remember it. And then down the line, if it's ever brought up and you need a reference point, feel free to use my video, okay? To quote me if necessary, okay? First of all, for awareness on the case, awareness on Brenner, but also to link back to the origins, the catalyst, okay? Because that's often forgotten. Now, one final thing to acknowledge, depending who is listening right now, and if people have joined late, I can imagine some humans will twist and turn this video or some of the wording, misunderstand it, and then assume that one is supporting Brenner or trying to justify his actions. You know, those type of people, okay? For the full context, if you have just randomly joined, make sure to rewind back to the beginning and then you'll fully understand the talking points. But I'm sure the Shack Lady will understand what I'm getting at in this video, though I know there'll be other people out there that will be really whingy and whiny, but tough shit to them, okay? So I think we'll leave it there for now. Let me know if you learned anything new in this video. If you have your own opinions, ideas, concepts, list that all down below in the comment section. And if it needs to be responded to, such as questions or just your own opinions, I can respond back, okay? We'll see what happens next, of course, if there is anything. Be on the lookout for Lance Kelly's next live video premiere. Looks somewhat interesting. We'll see what that is or where it leads to, if there's any more twists and turns. And yeah, I think that should be it for now. If there is any more news on the Dylan Rounds case, then it will be covered. At this moment in time, I don't really have any video ideas, okay? So give it maybe a couple of days break if need be, and then see from there what happens, right? Because as we know, unexpected things can happen in general, but also in the Dylan Rounds case. So there's no harm in keeping an eye out for it. And if not, then we just see what happens from there, okay? So thanks for watching. Hope you managed to watch all of this video and understand it, especially the last part of it. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye and good night for now.